Havoim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Yud Gimel Amud Beis, starting with Daf Yud Gimel Amud Aleph at the very beginning of the Gemara. The Mishnah had stated a list of those who were in charge of different parts of the Avodah, the Beis HaMikdash. Now, throughout the generations, there was many people who were appointed, and yet the Mishnah lists 15. So the question is, what are we referring to in this list in our Mishnah? Says the Gemara, Rabbi Chizkiya Rabbi Simon v'Rabbanon Chad Omar Kisherei Dor V'Dor Bo Limnois Alein. One says that those who are the outstanding, the kosher ones of all of the generations, those are the ones who are chosen to be included in this list in our Mishnah. The Charna Omar, and the other one said, Misha Hoya Ba'oisai Dor Mona Mashe B'Dairoi. The one that was in his generation, the Tana, he listed all of these 15 that were present in his generation as ones who were appointed for these different avodos. We'll read the parentheses because many have the girsa as follows. Man domer b'sheire kishire kol dor v'dor bolim nois al kulon hu oimer zecher tzadik livrocha. The opinion that says that we're mentioning all of those ksherim from all of the generations, the best ones in these areas, those are the ones that we're listing in the appointment of these things, is indeed a fulfillment of the verse Zecher Tzadik Livrocha, to mention the Tzadik's name as a memory. Man domer misha haya ba'isei dor mono mashe b'doroi al kulon hu oimer v'shem rishoim yirkav. The other one whose opinion is, on that door, he's mentioning all of those in his generation, even though they were not necessarily the right ones who did it correctly, but rather it's a fulfillment of the name of the Rishoim shall then decay. On top of Yigim Amud Beis. Says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yonah, Ksiv, it says in the Pasuk, Lachein achalek loy berabim ve'at atzumim yechalek sholom. Who is this a reference to? We just said, according to the first opinion before that was quoted, this is reference to the Mishnah lists all of those who were appointed from all of the generations were the best in their field. So once we praise them, the Gemara now brings a praise for the great Rabbi Akiva based on this pasuk. Ze Rabbi Akiva she hiskin medrash halachois vehagodois. This is a reference to Rabbi Akiva was Meiser Nefesh to then expound Medrash and the halachos that are found in the Mishnayos and the Haggados that we also find in Chazal. Some say it was Anshe Knesset Agdola who was Mesakin. So what did Rabbi Akiva then Mesakin? If it wasn't then the halachos and the Medrash and the Agodos, says the Gemara, Ze klolos uprotos. Rabbi Akiva was responsible for the klolos, the generalities, as well as the specific teachings, and therefore this is a reference to the shvach of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Abohu. Rabbi Abohu said, Stephen said in the pasuk, Mishpachas Soifrim Yoshev Yabeitz. The Mishpachas Soifrim calls them Soifrim, literally the scribes, the counters. They are sitting yaibetz. Matamuloymar. What's meant by soifrim? Why mention as soifrim? Ela she'osu es haTorah sfurois. Rather, they make the Torah countings. As follows: Chamisha lo yitrumu truma. There are 5 that are not responsible for taking truma. One must take a truma if he has a field in Eretz Yisrael. However, there's exceptions to that, and 5 of those exceptions are listed over there. Hey, dvarim chayavim bechala. There are 5 different things that are obligating hafrashas chala, only 5 specific grains, and other ones not. So again, it's talking about a specific number. In this case, we're talking about barley, wheat, spelt, rye, and oats. There are 15 women who are co-wives that will pater each other from requirements of Yibum. There are 36 different rayos that are mentioned in the Torah that a person who then is oiver b'mezid is chayev krisus. 13 davar nemu b'nevelas ha'oif hator. There are 13 things that are mentioned in regards to the nevelas of an oif tohor. Dalid avos nezikin. There are 4 main categories of those who are damagers. There are 39 malachos in regards to Shabbos, those prototypes that are learned from the Meleches HaMishkan. And therefore we have all of these different countings that are a result of teaching the Torah, of counting, like the Gemara said before, that is, they're called Mishpachas Soifrim. They were those who are Svurois of the Torah. Omar Rabbi Eliezer, it says in the Pasuk, LeEzra HaKohen HaSoifer, refers to ever HaKohen, the scribe. The Gemara makes a drasha, HaSoifer, not only the scribe, but rather the one who counts. Matam Olav Soifer, Ele Keshem Shehaya Soifer B'divrei Torah, just like he counts the Divrei Torah, Kachaya Soifer B'divrei Chachamim, also when it comes to the Divrei Chachamim, he also make countings. Rabbi Chagai b'Shem Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachman Harishonim Charshu V'Zaru V'Nikshu Kischu Edroi Kitzru Omru Doshu Zoru Boru Tochnu Harkidu Loshu Kitifu Va'afu. They did 15 different steps of malacha until it became bread, starting with the plowing and the planting all the way until ultimately the baking. And we don't have what to eat. In other words, all of this work was already then taught to us how to make bread. In other words, we don't have to then bother ourselves with learning all of those things, and still we don't have the same understanding as the earlier generations. Rabbi Abba bar Zimina Mishem Rabbi Zeiro Ein Havin Kadmoin Malachin Then Anan Bnei Enosh. If these early generations are looked at as malachim, then we are only people in comparison, human beings. Ve'ein havian. Ein havian kadmoi malachin anan b'nei enosh. Ve'ein havian b'nei enosh anan chamorin. And if indeed these are only people from the early generations, then we are indeed like donkeys. He said at that time, when he was then recalling an incident that caused a mishap, he was served a certain grain that was not tithed. He thought it was, because he thought the person who was giving it to him did indeed take the proper chumas and meisters from it, but at the end it was not meistered out, and he made a mistake and only realized afterwards. So he said at that time, Omrin afilu bechamorosa, the Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair, even the donkey Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair loy udminun chamarte, the Rabbi loy adminun, we are not compared to. Why? The chamarte, the Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair ganavto listoi belelio. There was a story that took place that the donkey of Pinchas ben Yair was stolen, and he was stolen and hidden away at night. Avdes Tmira Gavoin Tlosin Yomin. For 3 days it was hidden by these ganovim. V'lo tama klum, and it wouldn't eat anything. Tlosa Yomin Imlichun Mechazarte. After 3 days, these ganovim, they decided to return the donkey to its owner. Amrei afkinun min hacha delotemus. Let us then give it back, because otherwise we don't want the animal to die. He's not eating for 3 days. Govan afkuno azlis v'kames lo altara the maris sharias min hakos. It says over here that they returned the animal to the gate of its owner. Omar loin pischoin lahade alufta. So the owner, Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair, said to his Talmidim, he said that open up, and provide the animal, give him some food to eat. This poor misken. The isla tlas yamin de latama klum, because there was 3 days that he didn't eat anything. Paschon law va'olas law. They then opened up so that he will then be given food, and they brought it to him, to the animal. Omar loin, he said to them, Yahavu la klum teichel. Amalo Yahavun lo. He said to them, to his Talmidim, give it to the animal to eat. Klum teichel. He wouldn't eat anything. The animal wouldn't eat anything. He refused. Yavun koima sa'arin v'loy bois lemeichal. They brought in front of him barley, and the animal, the donkey, would not eat still. Amrin lei. Rebbe, loy bois lemeichal. The Talmidim said to Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair, the animal does not want to eat. Omar loin, he said to them, Mesaknin inon. Then he said, Mesaknin inon, did you take the proper, to make it, were you mesakin the grain properly? That it's going to be then edible for the animal to eat properly? Omar lein, yes. Omar loin, he said to them, Va'amrisu damayon. Did you then take out, do you have demai? In other words, do you fix it so there's not demai? Demai is that the grain that's bought from an Am Haaretz, there's a suffix whether Meiser was taken out or not, and therefore one has to mafrish Meiser, and the animal is makpid. Omrun lei, they said to him, Loi, Kain alfun, Rabbi, halokech zer lebehema, kemach lo'oris, shemen lo'or, potem min admai. Did you not teach us that which is going to be animal feed does not have to be then taken out the demai? Omar loin, Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair responded to his Talmidim, Manavid lo, what can we do to this animal? The animal's machmir. Lahada aluvosa, to this misken animal. Dahi machamro, machmara al garmo, sagin, varim mandami, demayin va'achalt. It says that this animal is machmir on itself, and therefore they did end up taking out demai. They took out the meister from the demai, and now the animal ate. So here we see that even when it comes to the animal, we have a klal that the animal doesn't have a michshal, and here the animal is even itself extra stringent. We're saying that we are not even like the donkeys of Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair. The Gemara now quotes the Mishnah, identifying that indeed Psachia was Mordechai HaTzadik, and he was responsible for the kanim, for the pair of birds that were brought by the Zav, the Zava, and the Yoledis. The Gemara just brings a special shvach to say, wow, come and see how great is the strength of that man, referring to Mordechai HaTzadik, Psachia, who then was able to explain the various words and things that were said to him. As the Gemara now brings different illustrations. Says the Gemara, Yodea be'ayin loshon, he knew 70 languages. Tani, it states first, Sanhedrin sheyesh bo shnayim, sheyicholim ledaber v'kulam ru'in lishmoya, harei ze ru'ya l'Sanhedrin. If there's a Sanhedrin that has 2 that is able to speak the 70 languages, and the rest are able to understand, then it's a Sanhedrin that's ru'ya. If it's going to be the Sanhedrin Gimbal, Harez Beinonis. If it's Sanhedrin that it can speak the 70 languages, then it's Beinonis. Dalid Harezu Chachama. If it's a Sanhedrin that has 4 that can speak all 70 languages, then it's a wise type of Sanhedrin. Ubeyavne Hayubod. And in Yav there was such a Sanhedrin that had 4 that were able to speak, not only understand, everybody understood, but were able to speak the various 70 languages. And who were they? Ben Azai, Ben Zoimo, Ben Chachinoi, Rabbi Lozer ben Masya, and some say Chananya ben Chaniloi. Now the Gemara brings Omer Rabbi Chizda, the various illustrations of the pichus, the wisdom of Psachia, who was Mordechai HaTzadik. Omer Rav Chizda Pam Achas Yavosha Yabsha Eretz Yisrael had a drought. They didn't know where to bring the carbon oimer from. The carbon oimer is harvested on the 16th of Nisan. It's barley. To bring then the carbon oila the next morning on the Mizbeach, which will then matir the new grain. They didn't know where to bring it from. There's a drought. There was one person who was an Elaim. Here, the Farshim explained it was a deaf mute. Dahava Yahiv Chad Yadei al Gagois v'Chad Yadei al Tzrifim. He put his hand, one on Gagois, literally it means on roofs, and the other hand he put on the top of a Tzrifim. Tzrifim is really like a hut that is a sharp top, doesn't have a proper gag. I sinu kamei de Psachia. They brought this Elaim in front of Psachia to understand what did he mean. Omar Lahu, he said to them, Is Asar, the Miskere Gagos Tzrifin or Tzrifin Gagos, is there a place that indeed is called Gagos Tzrifin or Tzrifin Gagos? Oslin, they went, Litamon there, Va'ashkechon, and they found it. Rabbi Yoiso, Rabbi Bun. In other words, they found where to go to then get this grain. He understood what this man was coming to say. Rabbi Yosi Rabbi Bun Pamachas Nishtaf Kol Ha'olam Kuloi. Here it says all of the world was in a state of dryness. They didn't know where to bring the oimer from. And there was a deaf mute who had one hand on Eina and one hand on Suchra. They want to know what did that mean? What is he intending to mean with that? So Gemara explains, when he had one hand on his eye, on Eina, and one hand on the hole in the mezuzah, which was used to then put a bolt in. Aisinu lebgabe Pesachia, they brought him in front of Pesachia. Amar lo, and he said to them, Is asked the miskere ayin soicher, or soicher ayin, is there a place that's called ayin soicher, or soicher ayin? Va'azloin tamon va'ashkechoin. And they went there and they found indeed this is a place that they can then harvest the oimer. A third incident that explains the pichus of Psachia. Gimel nashim heviu kinehen. There are 3 women who are bringing their kinehem, their pair of birds. Now, when it comes to a zava, or zav gadol, zava gedola, they have to bring birds, one pair, one that is going to be a korban chatos, as well as a korban oilo. And there were 3 women who brought their birds. Achas oimeres liimti, linosi. V'achas oimeres liimosi. V'achas oimeres lizivosi. So each one said what they were the chorah coming to bring. Zusha oimeres linosi, savrin meimar shofas kemayon. They thought when she said liinosi, it's referring to the word mayan. She had such a flow that she was a zava gedoila, and therefore she was bringing a pair of birds to then, or to bring the pair of birds as her offerings, a chatos and an oila. Omar loin, however, Pesachia understood differently. Ba'aino sakant zu shoimeres lim. Omar loin ba'aino sakana zu. She said, no, my eye was in sakana. And therefore she was bringing 2 oilos birds. She wasn't a zava gedola. Similarly, the one who said Shomer Yamasi, Savrin, they thought Meimar Shofaz Kiyam, that her flow was flowing like the river, and therefore she was implying that she was a zava gedola, which required the 2 birds, an oila and a chatos. Omar loin, however, Pasachya, he understood differently. He said, Biyama Sakonas Zu. He said, no, that's not what she meant. She said, I was endangered by the yam, and therefore she was bringing 2 birds as an oila, both oilos. Shomer the zivasi, when she said, the third woman, that she was zivasi, that's what she's coming for. Savrin meimar zava mamish. They all thought that she was a zava mamish. Again, she's bringing a pair of birds, one for a chatas, one for an oila. Or Marloin, Pepsachia said, no, ze'ev bo little esbena. There was a wolf that came to take her son, and therefore she's coming to then bring two oilos, nedavois. The Gemara also quotes Ben Achia v'chulei. He was in charge of the Kaihanim who had intestinal problems. Says the Gemara to explain, but since the Kohanim had to walk barefoot on the cold stone floor of the Beis HaMikdash, there couldn't be a chatzitza between their feet and the ground. And they would eat a lot of meat from the korbanos, not to leave it as noisar. V'shoisin mayim, and they would drink water because they couldn't drink wine, which would normally facilitate digestion. Then they would come to have different intestinal problems. And this one, referring to Ben Achia, who was a doctor, he knew which type of wine to give them, which would be then beneficial for the digestive system and which would be then harmful for them.